Do you have about 4 minutes that we can talk about peace versus fear? Peace versus anxiety and worry. We live in some rather troubling, rather frightening times, do we not? We're fearful regarding COVID-19. We can be very troubled regarding job losses. We can be scared of the troublemakers. We can be deeply worried about racism. We can be troubled about the election coming up in November. Or we, on the other hand, can find peace. Peace that the Lord, I believe, wants us to know deep within ourselves, no matter what the circumstances of life. I've written recently about not living in fear, and then a rather unusual question, I suppose, popped into my mind. What's the difference between fear and anxiety or worry? You can search anything on the internet today, and I did. The first thing that popped up was an article by Psychology Today, 10 differences between fear and anxiety. Now, first understand that Psychology Today, just as you would expect, was defining anxiety in terms of psychological disorders. And if you have been diagnosed with anxiety disorder, then what I'm saying today will only have limited value for you. But most of us use the word anxious as a synonym for worry. Someone is anxious about a grade that they're going to receive in school, or maybe anxious about the job. Fear, on the other hand, according to Psychology Today, is an anatomical reaction. You're walking through weeds and suddenly you hear the rattle of a rattlesnake. Probably there's some genuine fear that's going to come up in you, and you don't have any control over whether it comes up inside you. Or you're standing and watching a tornado and it's bearing right down on you. I would suppose you're going to fear. I don't even believe that's what the scripture talks about when it says don't fear. But let's focus on that anxiety, that worry. I don't believe we're to have that either. There's a rather famous passage in Matthew chapter 6 from the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus said, Matthew chapter 6, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you'll eat, what you'll drink, or about the body, what you'll wear. Is not the life more than the food, and the body more than the clothing?" He goes on to talk about the birds of the air and how God takes care of them, and they don't worry. And verse 27 says, "Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to the span of your life?" You can take an hour or two away by worrying, but you're not going to add any. Notice that this is the New Revised Standard Version that I was reading from. It used the word worry, and so does the NIV. But on the other hand, the famous old American Standard, the 1901 translation, talks about being anxious. And that's what the English Standard Version says. I also found the Amplified Classic Version. It says, don't be perpetually uneasy about matters. I even found one version that says, don't be fussing about them. So what do? We know what not to do. What do? We put our trust in the Lord. No matter what virus is around us, no matter how troubled our society, no matter if we face death itself, we put our trust in the Lord. And then, even in stressful times, we can know peace.